I'm Grace.
Hi, I'm Carmela, and welcome back to the Worthy Woman podcast.
The place where we don't give you your worth, but we can help you find it.
Welcome to episode 4. We're so excited that we get to share some things today with you guys.
Yeah, we're really excited about this episode. This is going to be a little bit different from our usual episodes, but we want to build the community, and we also want to open ourselves up to your guys' questions and to what you guys are going through personally. And so we asked on Instagram for some questions that everybody's going through, and we're going to do our best to answer it, give you some counsel, give you some good advice. And yeah, we're really excited.
Yeah. All right. Which one do we want to answer?
These are all pretty deep, actually. Like there's only like one kind of fun one, so I guess we'll start off with that first. Somebody asked, what is your go-to coffee orders? And she said it better be everything, like from probably Starbucks, Dutch, like everywhere.
It's always like changing for me, but I guess I'll just say what it is right now when I go to these places. My go-to Starbucks order is right now a vanilla sweet cream cold brew with brown sugar cold foam. That one is so good. It's not... Actually, I really like my coffee very sweet and milky. I'm not even gonna lie. So that, and my go-to Dutch order right now is a small sugar-free Golden Eagle. Iced. So it's like just a caramel coffee. Really good. I don't really go anywhere else. My favorite coffee, though, is Grace's Nespresso pods. They're so good, and my favorite one has to be the coconut one with whole milk. That is my go-to coffee orders. What about you, Grace?
Yeah, so I'm just a bit more complicated. So like I have like my sweet treat order, the one where I don't care like about the sugar calories. I'm just like, yes, let me get my sweet coffee. I also have just like my regular order. And then it's also complicated because now I'm not drinking coffee, so I don't order coffee anymore. But when I was, during my prime, my like favorite just sweet coffee is just a caramel macchiato from Starbucks. Just so good, blonde espresso. But then if I'm like, trying to kind of watch the calories, the vanilla sweet cream cold brew is super good. Cold brew is like my favorite coffee, but I had a horrible experience with it with Carmela, and it was like the best coffee I've had ever. And it's from Boyer Bakery, which is just like a small business here in Arizona. But I had horrible withdrawals from it. And also, if you didn't know, caffeine is a literal drug. Like, it's a classified drug. It's so like, yeah, you really should not mess around with coffee. I had it on an empty stomach, and I basically was like throwing up the entire day, and the next day and the next day. So it was like, I'm scarred from coffee now, so that's why I'm drinking matcha. Yeah.
What about your Dutch order, though?
Yeah, my Dutch order.
Your tea?
Yeah, I guess sometimes I'll get tea. I'll get just like a green tea lemonade with strawberry, like whatever. But, yeah, I don't know. Not many places have good matcha at all. So this, like, you literally have to make it at home unless you live in like LA or something. But just the regular places really do not have any good matcha. Mm. And also coffee, because every time I go out for coffee, it's just not good. So that's why I love my Nespresso that I'm no longer using.
She should give it to me, huh? Comment down below. She should give it to me.
Okay. So now let's get into some real deep questions that, everybody has questions. Everybody needs counsel in some area, especially if you're a Christian. So yeah, we're going to try to help with these specific areas in your life. So the first question is, how do you allow God to help you with anxiety and depression?
Yeah. I mean, that's just such a deep question because I feel like everyone feels these emotions at some point in their life. Whether it be just even moments or anxiety and depression that you struggle with for like years, and it's really hard to get out of that. I guess I can speak from like experience from myself when I was going through a really hard time my senior year of high school, when I started experiencing like anxiety and feelings of depression like every day for a long time. And can you repeat the question again? Well, it's like, what are they asking?
How do you allow God?
Allow God to
help
work?
You? Mm-hmm.
I guess how I allowed God to work in my life to free me from my anxiety and my depression was full surrender, was just disciplining myself and my thoughts, holding them captive and laying them down at the foot of Jesus. It's so hard. It's so easy to just say that, but it's actually a really hard thing to do, is fully surrender yourself to Jesus. Especially when it's not like a material thing, or it's actually like a mental war in your mind that you have to surrender. And when you're not in that state of mind, like you don't even know what to do, really. You don't know what to give up, what to think, because you're just overwhelmed with these thoughts. So some practices I started incorporating in my life was honestly like, I don't know what better way to say it, but was like force. Like I had to force myself out of the house, no matter how I was feeling, what I was thinking. I had to force myself to pray every time I had these thoughts and feelings. Pray, read the Bible, journal. Journaling was like my number one thing, is like just putting it out on a piece of paper, because I look back at it and I'm like, why am I worrying? Look at this. To get to see it like right in front of you, and then it doesn't seem like maybe as bad or as like crazy. So allowing God to work, and the only way you can do that is by surrendering and just full devotion and commitment that you know that God is going to help you get you through this, and it's not a forever thing.
Yeah. Very true. So I have a lot of experience in anxiety. I feel like I was just born like an anxious child. Like, I don't even know. But that's a big part of my testimony, is that I struggled with anxiety like my entire life. And it wasn't until probably like when I was 19 maybe that I fully, like Carmela said, fully surrendered myself to God. And I have not struggled with that since, in the way that I used to. And so this kind of just goes deeper into what is anxiety, like what is depression. We think it's a demonic oppression. We think that it's spiritual, that it's not just chemicals in your brain that's like a disorder. We think that's a lie, and we think that everything is spiritual. And so I also think that in so many ways, evil tries to infiltrate believers. And so I think that the biggest way that that's happening is anxiety and depression. And so for me, once I realized, hey, this is not me, This is not how I'm hardwired. This is not how my brain works. It's it's spiritual oppression. And it's really easy from that because I know I'm set free because of Jesus. And so once you realize that this is not a part of your biology that you can't change, and once you realize that it's a spiritual battle, I think it would become a lot easier to overcome it because Jesus has already done that for us on the cross. Um, it it's either a once and for all sacrifice with Jesus, or it wasn't, and you have to constantly atone, which is not true. Because it is a once and for all sacrifice, and Jesus defeated the one thing that is so inevitable to humans, to mankind, is death. And if he can conquer death, if he can defeat death, there's no stronghold in the world that he can't help you get through. And I think that the world has, told us that anxiety and depression is a part of you and you cannot get away from that. So here's medication to help you get through this miserable life. And I think that's a complete lie. I think that it is a spiritual thing, and I've experienced it. You can fully surrender that to God because he has already overcome that on the cross.
Yeah. Yeah, and like, how would you say that it is spiritual? Like, how can we explain like why we think that it's more of like a spiritual battle? Like, what are some evidence of that?
Well, let's think what it is. Like, you could just go the scientific, naturalist route and say, well, it is just chemicals inside of my brain. And that's all anxiety is. Or you can look at it as this is something that exists outside of material, and it exists in my mind, not my brain makeup, but my mind. And I think that's what it is.
Yeah. I guess I would say it's more of a spiritual thing because at least for me, I know it didn't feel like it was myself. Like, I remember in those times of anxiety and just really like down in the dumps, like in the back of my mind, I knew it wasn't me. And it's not something that I wanted to possess either. And so that's how I feel like I know it's a spiritual thing rather than a chemical thing. Because the moment I would pray, the moment I would like seek Jesus, it's like it all went away. And it's like so weird. And that's a spiritual thing. It's like Jesus is fully covering you in his like peace, and bringing the light into like this like darkness that you have because it's not you, and casting the demons out, like, actually. And yeah, I almost felt like I was like something was taking over myself, and that is what demons and something spiritual feels like. And yeah, I guess that's how I know.
Yeah, and something that helps me a lot, and that did help me a lot, is Joel Osteen. And it's so funny because this can also be another topic for another video, but during like COVID, during like this whole Christian TikTok phase, there was a movie that came out that was called American Gospel, and they basically, these group of people like called out preachers and like called them heretics for what they were preaching, and Joel Osteen was one of them. And so like I immediately hopped on that bandwagon, and I was like, ugh, Joel Osteen, like prosperity gospel, ugh, whatever. But then I started listening to his sermon, and none of it none of it is anti-biblical. Not one thing he has said is anti-biblical. He goes over biblical stories. He, the only thing that I think a lot of Christians dislike is faith. Like, seriously, I think that Christians have a huge problem with faith.
Why would you say that?
Because, like, I feel like Christians as a whole expect the worst on earth. And I think that Protestant Christians think that Jesus' sacrifice was only for your eternal life. And I think that's really what we focus on. But like the Eastern Orthodox, right, they focus on the sacrifice that Jesus made and how you are living in the kingdom of God on earth as well. And I would agree with that, because it's not just about your eternal life, but Jesus set you free from sin right now. He set you free from depression and anxiety and everything right now. And so I think that, people just don't like to take accountability or responsibility. And that takes some type of responsibility and accountability to overcome hard things like anxiety and depression. And so I think that's really easy to say, our time here on earth is just not going to be good because it's a broken world. But like Joel Osteen, no, he brings the truth to light that Jesus is so powerful and so good, and God is good. Like, we forget that God is so good, especially to those who love him. And, the abundant life is something that Jesus speaks about a lot. And that is how we're supposed to live on earth,
Yeah.
And so I think that people dislike the faith that Joel has. Like, he has so much faith. He has so much faith. And that's what he provides in his sermons, is he provides you faith. And so if you are struggling with anxiety, depression, anything negative, please watch his sermons. They are so encouraging. They're so biblical and good. And they help me so much, because in order for you to have an abundant life, it's also with you, right? So Jesus has given us that sacrifice for the abundant life, but you have to want it and you have to be able to accept it ultimately. And I think that a lot of people don't. Even if you know Jesus, I don't think people want to accept an abundant life here on earth. It's really hard to actually accept goodness.
Yeah. I think also another thing that I love about Joel Osteen and his sermons is that he's so positive with his words. He only speaks life and positivity over himself and his church. And I think that's really important for us that struggle with darkness within your mind and the spiritual battle of anxiety and depression. Hold on, I don't know why I'm out of breath. Because words have so much power, more power than you even think. God spoke this world into existence, and you can speak things over yourself and that you will start to become, and start to feel and think. And so if you're constantly telling yourself, oh, I have anxiety, oh, I have this, oh, I have that, or I feel this way, or I grew up this way, so I'm this way, and I can't help this, but I love Jesus and all this stuff, and he's great in moments. He brings me comfort, but this is who I am. No, that's just not true. Jesus has fully set you free because of the cross, and the cross alone, from everything. He didn't just go to the cross for certain things. He went to the cross for absolutely everything, whether it be, your physical sin but also your mental sin that you have. God does not promote worry, lack of faith, sadness, depression, like all these things. He does not want you to give power to that at all, because he has overcome that. So you don't have to live in that sin. And it's harder because, like, I'm also one that can testify to feeling these things and feeling very depressed for a long period of time, and having anxiety, like really bad anxiety. Not just like, oh, what am I gonna wear today, or I don't want to go out. Like, no, like actually like crippling anxiety for a long time. And it's so hard. And people will tell you, oh, it's okay, like you got this. And that doesn't really help. The only thing that truly helped me was Jesus, just literally praying to Jesus and letting him into my life and my mind. So you're not alone. We love you, and you can overcome this because Jesus went to the cross for absolutely every thought that you have had and everything that you feel. The next question that we have is, what do you think drives people to be self-righteous?
So self-righteousness ultimately comes from pride. And I think pride comes from a place where you're trying to prove yourself. And I think pride comes from a place of, insecurity. And so it's like, it's really hard, I think, especially being a Christian, to draw the line of when you're being self-righteous and when you're just being righteous. Like, that's really hard because there's truth, and you are living in truth if you're a Christian, and so you are right in that aspect. And so if you know the truth, then you know right from wrong, and so you can see when someone or, things are going wrong. So you can see that. And so then, it's very easy to like fall into, well, I am doing things right, and therefore I am doing better than somebody that isn't doing what I'm doing. And so then it elevates yourself in that aspect. But I think that the way to combat that is to look at Jesus, because he was perfect and he is literally God. So he had the authority to be self-righteous, and he wasn't. He was humble. He lived in humility, and he didn't exalt himself over anyone ever. I mean, not even on the cross, right? He could have, and he could have said, I'm the Son of God, you will obey me, right? Caesar, no, get out, I'm the actual Son of God, right? But he didn't. He came in humility. He came as a servant, and he didn't come as a wealthy king, even though that's what he deserves, right? He has that authority, but he didn't come as that. And so I think that if you ever catch yourself being self-righteous, or, somebody calls you out on it, like, you probably are, because it's really, really, really easy to do. So then we should look at the character of Jesus and see how he was the only one to have that authority to be the self-righteous person you're thinking of, but he wasn't, and he came as a humble servant. And so what drives somebody to be self-righteous? I don't know. I think it's something that is really easy to fall into. I think that it's ultimately pride. But pride doesn't come from you thinking you're the best. Like, pride comes from you having to prove to somebody that you're more than what you think you are.
Yeah, that was a great answer. Yeah, I mean, I think what Grace said was just like pretty spot on. Yeah, but just another little thought is, we forget how much we have been forgiven as well, and covered in grace by God, and how much grace we have been given by Jesus. And so to live a life where you are not giving the same amount of grace that you have been given is just, very wrong. It is. And it's hard to fall into that, of course. And I'm obviously guilty of that. It's really easy, just like Grace said, to not even realize it. But I think if you're just constantly reminding yourself that, like, literally thinking of who you were before Christ and how much God has, like, changed you and forgiven you, and He's doing the same for others, and that will kind of help you set aside your pride. And just like Grace said, that He came as a humble servant and He was the Son of God. Yeah.
I feel like since, our community, our ministry is for young girls and women in general, like the biggest thing in our lives is relationships, and the biggest thing in our life is that familial, spousal relationship aspect. And so I think that, like a lot of these questions we got are focused towards that. And I think that's such a good thing, because I think that every girl needs some guidance on like relationships, So this one says, can taking breaks and space in a relationship lead to a healthier comeback, or is taking breaks and space mean that it should be done? Even when trust and loyalty is broken multiple times, can it truly be regained? I think, first of all, I think that a lot of people struggle with this in relationships, especially if you're not devoting it completely to Jesus. It's like very easy to give up in a sense and not know where to go.
I don't know. I don't know why this question was really hard for me to kind of answer, because I can't imagine that a relationship that God has put together would ever need some sort of like break. God is not the author of confusion, especially in relationships. And but then a part of me is like, also breaks are like good in a sense. So I don't really know how to answer this, honestly. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think for me, I've been in a almost 3-year relationship and we have not taken one break. And that is because of choice. That's not because, we never felt like we needed to. And, Vic and I have like talked about this so many times, and this is something we established. There will be no breaks. Because what happens when you're married? Like you don't like take breaks when you're married. Like maybe a girls trip like on the weekend, but like you don't take a break from your relationship when you're married. So if your ultimate goal in a relationship is to stay in a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, then like, breaks aren't a big deal, like whatever, because you're not going to commit to anything anyway. But if you're planning to get married to this person, having breaks is a red flag, because that means that you can't overcome your problems together. It means that you need to separate yourself and not work together with this person to overcome a problem that you both are trying to get over. And I think especially if you're the man in the relationship, you should really discourage a break, because if you are the leader and if you are especially the emotional and stable one, that you should be leading during these times when, like the woman wants to run away. Like I feel like that's something we all kind of want to do, is run away from hard things. But you need a strong man who is not going to want you to do that. You need a strong man that's going to say, hey, I know this is really hard, but you and I have to stay together and get through this together, because that's what a relationship is. It's not just two people, doing life alone and then like hooking up. Like, no, you're becoming one flesh. And so your problems are his problems are your problems, and you both are going to have problems together. And you can't solve those problems alone, like seriously. And so breaks really are a red flag. They really are. And what fruit would come from a break? It's like you're pausing on your commitment, which is wrong. You shouldn't back out of a commitment for whatever reason. Even throughout like life, not even relationships. Like when things get hard and you're in a commitment, you don't like take a break. Like you get through a hard thing because you committed.
Yeah. Do you guys see why Grace is my best friend? She's so wise. Yeah, that was a beautiful response, honestly. Honestly, preaching to me. So, thanks. Okay, our next question is it wrong to want a relationship while waiting on God? No. I would not say that it is a wrong thing to desire a relationship while you're waiting for God to bring you your person. This, to me and Grace, brings up the topic of people saying, don't idolize marriage, especially while you're single. It's like you should just be living this life without that even a thought in your mind. And then when it comes, it's like, then worry about it. Which is true to an extent. I think you shouldn't be like dwelling on it and like being super like upset that you don't have it right now, that you're not like pursuing the purpose that God has for you like during your singleness, because I do believe that God works like beautifully when you are single. But also I think it's a great thing to want and desire, and God knows your heart during your singleness. And yeah. What would you say?
Yeah, well, marriage is a good thing. Like that's a God-given creation. It's good. And so, when people say like you shouldn't idolize marriage, to me that it just doesn't really go. Because if it's a God-given good desire, then like where's the line that you're idolizing it? Like what do you even mean by idolizing a marriage?
Yeah, what does idolize like even mean in that sense?
Yeah, because when we look at idolization in the Bible, it's with literal statues and what they represent. And they would make it their God and worship it. But my question is, for the present day, how would you idolize marriage? How would you worship marriage? It just doesn't really make sense to me. If they mean idolizing as taking up space in your mind, I disagree. Like, I think that marriage is pretty much the closest you can get to on earth, like creation, back to, the garden, like goodness. I think that's probably the closest you can be on earth to that. And so if something is so good like that and it's taking up space in your mind, like great, like that's amazing. And especially if you're wanting marriage that badly and you want to be a wife, like these are all really good things, and so I don't really see it like that at all.
Yeah, because like, can you even, like, I just don't think it's even in the same category. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Idolization and like a good God-given desire. Like, why are those being meshed together? And treated as a bad thing? Because we've been told this a few times.
Yeah. And you know what? I think it's from Like, I think it's from a lack of faith that you don't think he will provide for you, so you have to kind of cope and be like, well, even if it doesn't happen, like, I'll be okay because I'm not idolizing it. But that's a lack of faith, because if you have that desire, that God-given good desire, then he will provide, he will provide for that. And you shouldn't have a lack of faith because, it's not here right now. And you really shouldn't have a lack of faith in God. And I think that that's kind of like a cope that people will say is like, don't idolize marriage because they don't have it yet. Because they don't want like other girls, and like everybody to be focused on something that they're afraid they're not going to receive. But if you believe in a good God, this is a good gift, then you'll receive it.
And I guess to answer like the original like question, because the idolizing marriage is, it's still, I guess to answer the question is, it is okay to want a relationship while waiting on God.
In fact, it's good. You should. That is a good gift from God. You should want a good gift from God.
Yeah. Basically, this podcast has turned into get married and have kids. That is our ultimate goal, to preach to you guys.
So true. Okay, so this is going to be our last question. I think this is a really good one. Can I still be used by God if I've made a lot of mistakes? I think, like, if somebody asks this, I would ask them, have you read the Bible? Like, have you read the Bible?
Yeah, that's exactly what I said in my mind.
Yeah.
I immediately thought of Jesus' disciples and the whole message of the Bible.
Well, yeah, and even before Jesus came on earth, like, all of the people of the Bible, like, every single person.
Yeah.
So what's maybe some people in the Bible that maybe stand up to you, that relate to you?
Relate to me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, that's a hard question. I never thought about that. I guess somebody that comes to mind that I kind of can relate to in the Bible, when it comes to like my mistakes and still being able to like walk with Jesus, is Mary Magdalene. She was just really like overcome with worry and like just a very traumatic past, and just very like filled with darkness. And then, Jesus came into her life and redeemed her and told her that she is not her sin. She is not these things that she has come from and that she is feeling, and that she can walk with him, like be one of basically his disciples. I mean, she followed Jesus and was around for his entire ministry basically, and that is so encouraging to me because I really see myself in her a lot.
Can you be used by God if you have made mistakes? Like, yeah. That's every single person in the Bible. Every single person has lived an imperfect life, and God still used them for his glory and showed them, his love and kindness. I would agree. I think Mary Magdalene for me is the same, in the sense that she was like tormented by, sadness and everything like that. And then, Jesus totally redeemed her from that. I also think Martha, I relate to a lot, because in the story of Martha and Mary, she focuses basically on like the event and like the little things when Jesus is like sitting in front of her. And Mary focuses on Jesus, and Martha is focusing on the well-being of everybody else. And then Martha feels unnoticed, unseen by Jesus and everybody. And then Jesus says, you should focus on the more important thing, and that thing is me right now. He says you're so overcome with worry, like I'm here now. And that relates to me a lot. I think about the details, and I think about the result of things, and I tend not to live in the moment or be grateful with what God has given me right now. And I'm always looking forward to what, things that I want, or, anything in the future like that. And so, everybody in the Bible is used by God also just because of the fact that they're in the Bible. That's how they're used by God. And so in that story, Martha and Mary, but especially Martha, was used to communicate a heavenly thing that now you and I can relate to and can see the sin in ourselves. And, God turns graves into gardens, like literally. I mean, think about the entire story of Jesus, like the grave, like he went to the grave and he died. So that was the worst thing that could possibly happen. And then the best thing that could possibly happen did happen. And he defeated death. And so if you think that, you're too far gone, or like you're just lost, that's not a reason for you not to be in relation with God. Like he is the Redeemer. Jesus is the Redeemer. And you are created good, and you're made in the image of God, and you're so special. And he literally loves us so much through our mistakes and through our shortcomings that he sent his only son to bring us literally back to him. And so if you're saved and if you're a Christian, God doesn't look at you for your sin or for your mistakes in the past or any sin or mistake you'll make in the future, but he looks at you covered in the blood of Jesus. And so you're righteous, you're holy, you're literally spotless in the sight of God, even with the sins you will do in the future. And so that is the personification of Jesus, is that he saves people from their mistakes. And so to me, this question, it just, like, if you know Jesus, it doesn't make any sense, because it's like, of course, like, yes, that was his entire purpose. His entire purpose is to redeem people from their mistakes and sins, and he did. And so yes, if you're a person like all of us that has made so many mistakes, you're probably going to be used even more by God. Like you're probably going to be exalted even more. Yeah. Like so many people, you look around to like maybe the most famous people that are Christians, it's because they had like a crazy past, and it's because it shows how good God is that much more, And in the Orthodox faith theology, they believe that Jesus went down to hell when he was dead for 3 days to minister to the demons, right? And in that picture, you can see that Jesus didn't just defeat death, but he went to the literal depths, the literal bottom of what exists. And then he goes to the very top of what exists. And so in the same way, it's like, it's silly if you think you're too far gone,
Yeah, I guess just know that you are never too far gone for God. He used so many people in the Bible, people that persecuted Christians, murderers, thieves, people that struggled with mental illness, people that were possessed, like all these like different things. He like called them a son and a daughter and only saw them as that. And you can even imagine, I mean, we're not parents yet, but if you are, or you can even just kind of imagine maybe how your parents treat you. It's like, no matter what this child does, like, I love them and I'm going to help them no matter what. Like, this is my child. And so God, that's how God like sees you, and you are totally redeemable, and you can live a holy life with Jesus. Yeah.
Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed our Q&A episode. I hope that you got something from it. I hope that the Lord spoke to you through us. Thank you so much for watching.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Comment what you want to see from us. Maybe just some topics that you're wanting to hear some insight on. We would love to do that. May the Lord bless you and keep you and be gracious to you. Wait, did I say that right? May the Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you, and be gracious to you. Bye.